We're talking about pedigrees. Jeff, you brought 2 amazing pedigrees here just to show me. You're like, dude, these came in. You were excited. I'm like, oh, dude, I've heard about these type of books. And then I thought, no. We got to take this conversation to the mic because these are special comic books. All right, for the audio fam, let's describe what we're holding here. Just give me one of them. We have Cannonball, Golden Age comic books from 1945.
This was a short run. It was only a 2-issue series. Okay, these are the 2 highest graded copies.
The highest?
The highest graded copies.
How do you know that these are the highest graded copies?
So you can check CGC, a comic grading company. Okay, not saying that that's not what it stands for, but it's a comic grading company. They keep a census of all the books they've graded. These are on the census, and they are the highest of them. It says 8.5 for number 1 and a 7.5 for number 2. Number 2 has got a great devil cover there, and number 1 has got a great classic skull cover to it. And this kid, who is the Crash Kid.
Yeah, let's describe this comic book. We have Crash Kid. He kind of looks like almost a Robin figure, a little slender, and there's a car, a taxi on my copy of. I'm looking at issue number 2, and he's outside of the car, and he's gunning for what looks like Lucifer. Why is he gunning out of the car?
Crash Kid's alter ego, or who he really is Rusty Adams. He works as a copy boy for a newspaper company.
He doesn't have superpowers, correct?
No powers. But he hates gangsters and violence.
Dude, he hates gangdom.
Yes, we just said gangdom. Get your mind out of the gutter, okay? Gangdom. So for him to thwart gangdom, he drives a car into gangsters' hideouts and crashes it.
That's what he does. He's a superhero. He's like, oh, you need me to help you out? On my way. And he just crashes a car right into the heart of the gang.
So as you can imagine, this title didn't last very long.
It went 2 issues, but it's pretty dope, dude, because there's something a little bit more interesting about these particular comics, because we mentioned, aside from them being the highest graded, these are pedigrees. There's a D on these comics in pencil.
So when we say pedigree is a recognized collection by CGC and other grading companies potentially, but we're just going to focus on CGC, and they will note that on their label.
Some collections are renowned, thus making the particular comics that they're from more valuable.
They tend to garner more value as they become a recognized and more sought-after collectible, because it's a story behind these versions of the comic. And the story behind this was a 13,000 book collection. 2,000 of these books were stolen from the gentleman's house before they were ever recognized.
This is the Davis Crippen D copy collection.
And the thing about this collection that you can recognize is there's a letter D and a code on the interior of the cover.
Yeah, this gentleman actually wrote in pencil a D to signify that it was his own. And sometimes, in the collector's market, when there's markings on the cover, even signatures to some collectors are an abomination to the cover. But in this case, this D makes these comics extra sought after.
And that's exactly correct, because in order to recognize a pedigree, there generally has to be some type of markings that were left behind.
Yeah, how do you know this came from that particular collection?
Right. So unless it was all found at once and all graded at once, but that's not generally the reality. These things get broken up.
Pieced out. So 2,000 of this gentleman's collection was stolen without him knowing?
He had no idea. They were in a basement, and allegedly there were some people working on the house for a period of time, and they stole some comics and sold them to local comic shops. The books got out into the marketplace and became very collectible as being high-grade copies of the Golden Age books, unbeknownst to the family. And other collectors had no idea where this collection came from. They just migrated into the collectible.
This wasn't pedigree status yet. These were just out in the market, and people were feeding frenzied. They're like, high-grade comic books just came out. We got to get them all.
Exactly. And the books were eventually brought to market by Heritage, which is a huge auction house. And Lon Allen was the comic history director there, who of acquisitions or whatever role he played. And he met the family and recognized the letter D on the comics and found the rest of the collection. 11,000 more books. Okay, this collection spanned from about 1939 to 1955.
So when Heritage Auctions was contacted by this gentleman to look at this larger collection, You're telling me that the few copies they handled, they were so renowned that upon arrival, they just were able to correlate the two and know that this was part of the whole thing?
Yes, that's exactly it. Lon Allen recognized this, and the son, since the original owner passed away now, the son has the books. He contacted Heritage Auctions, okay? And like you said, they went over there. He recognized the D on here, and that's what makes it so special. He connected one with the other. Those 2,000 were part of a much larger group. So now that we know the story, these 11,000 books all went to auction, okay? No reserve auction in 2006 for Heritage. So we had a huge spill out of this entire collection, which now has been dispersed. And like we mentioned, it's the second largest Golden Age collection behind the Mile High collection. And it's some of the highest graded copies of some of these books. Now, the paper quality isn't the highest for all these books because there were some issues with moisture because of where it was stored, but the grades are still really high.
It actually says on here, aside from the number 2 saying it's a devil cover in the last issue, because it's only one of 2, it says here, Davis Crippen, and then parentheses, D copy.
It's recognized in 2 different ways.
With a certificate. Thank you for showing this. What cool pieces of comic history. And you're holding a number 1 that is an 8.5.
I've always been a big fan of this book. Didn't think it was going to ever get a copy of an 8.5, especially with the striking image of the skull and the crimson red hood and then the yellow behind it. That's just classic gold.